Good afternoon. So-called hate speech is free speech. In 1977, the American Civil Liberties Union defended the right of neo-Nazis to express themselves in public. 4 decades later, in 2017, the ACLU defended the right of Donald Trump to speak freely after he was charged with inciting violence at a campaign rally. However, 2017 is also the year Canada passed Bill C-16, which attempted to define and regulate speech. Bill C-16 purported to protect certain people from being targets of, quote, hate propaganda, and enabled judges to consider, quote, speech motivated by bias, prejudice, or hate as an aggravating circumstance during criminal sentencing for separate offenses. By 2023, thanks to so-called hate speech laws in the United Kingdom, more than 12,000 people had been arrested for speech violations for statements made or even reposted on their social media accounts. More than 12,000 people. Just for context, Russia, which is about twice the population of the UK and has long been considered one of the most brutal, totalizing states out there, had arrested just 3,319 citizens for speech violations. No one has a natural right not to be offended. The notion itself is a totalizing maneuver that is purely authoritarian at its core. Such proclaimed rights are a path to political violence. No one should see political violence, also known as domestic terrorism, as a legitimate response to speech that they don't like. A 31-year-old man named Charlie Kirk was assassinated this year for telling the truth. And by telling the truth, I'm not suggesting that his ideas and beliefs were all 100% true and correct. What I mean to say is that his words completely aligned with what he personally believed. Whether you loved him or loathed him does not matter. Charlie Kirk was honest, and for that his life was taken by a depraved public menace of the highest order. A young man so arrogant and so self-righteous that he believed he possessed some sort of Kantian categorical imperative to murder someone for the imagined crime of saying what he believed to be true. Never mind that nothing Mr. Kirk ever said could be characterized by any sane person as hateful, so far as I can determine. And even if it had been, all the more reason to protect his speech, and especially the right of others to hear it and to wrestle with it intellectually. Not many years ago, it became fashionable to exert power over others by calling them names. It was childlike, petty, and annoying, but it was effective nonetheless. Instead of presenting counter-arguments, some opponents of ideas chose to diagnose their opponents with names like racist, bigot, or misogynist, or an entire array of phobias, as if their opponents were suffering from mental disorders. Hijacking the term phobia provides the illusion of scientific analysis, though none of these freshly minted phobias could be found in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. The name-calling was used with great utility. There was momentum in this name-calling, and opponents of the name-callers were more likely to digress and withdraw from debate, lest they be labeled as unsavory or incurable. In time, the despicable trend of name-calling generated power for those who had weaponized it. You have to appreciate what a watershed moment this was for the name-callers. They came to have the full support of authoritarians in the mass media, big tech, and in politics who were more than willing to cancel people by destroying their reputations online, having them separated from their social media accounts, or even relieved of their employment. Far from true allies, however, the authoritarians already in power had nothing in common with the name-callers, but were more than happy to ally with them for the purpose of consolidating and exerting power for their own benefit. It didn't take long for this policing of speech and coercive regulating of so-called hate speech to move to the next stage, self-defense. You see, once I have convinced myself and others that my opponents are committing acts of violence against me with their words, it becomes a justification to perpetrate violence against them, all in the name of self-defense. We have to get them before they get us mentality. And we can all see the manifestation of that warped thinking today in the assassination and celebration of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, Charlie Kirk, and many others, not to mention the assassination attempts of then presidential candidate Trump, and now, of course, on federal immigration officers. This is an unadulterated madness, and it's not difficult to see the means by which we got to this point. I implore you to join the conversation, and that means not claiming hurt feelings or a right not to be offended. And here's the most difficult part. It also means being able to admit when you're wrong and having the ability to accept it in the broader interest of maintaining a civil society, because the alternative is civil war. The right to free speech does not and can never hinge on whether or not you agree with the speaker or feel offended by his ideas. Speech that you don't like should be countered with more speech, never violence. This can only happen when you accept what is true and respect those with whom you disagree. No one has the right to claim victimhood in order to control the speech or beliefs of others. Thank you.